We are live. Okay. I think the only thing I would ask before we get into the games is just like, did the rankings look good so far?
You know, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even look.
The Bama, Clemson, Michigan, Washington is the top four right now.
Who's 5?
Ohio State's 5, Louisville 6.
Louisville 6.
Yeah. So we'll do that and then we'll jump into the games.
Okay, Bama, Clemson. I'm writing this down.
Michigan.
3-ish, 4 Wash. Okay.
Hey. Okay. You all set?
Yep.
Let's see. This is week 11.
Since we skipped last week.
I was sick. We had 2 tailgate parties at home. I got sick. I started feeling shitty on the way home last weekend and was homesick for 2 days.
And then the World Series.
And then the World Series. And then this week it was Kelly. And I think she'll go back to work tomorrow. But
I was down for the count this weekend. I had a migraine all weekend.
Yeah, Kelly's especially weird. She doesn't get colds and stuff like that very often, but she's been feeling shitty. Okay. We will start this week 11 in 3, 2. Howdy, boys and girls. It is week 11 of the college football season and week 1, I guess, of the Hex, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Carla, how you doing?
Hanging in. How are you?
Oh, I'm perhaps not feeling as patriotic as I look, but again, we'll explain what's going on. No, I'm going to explain what's going on right now. I'm going to the USA-Mexico match, the first of the World Cup qualifying Hex tournament in Columbus on Friday. That is the home of the string of 2-0 matches with the U.S. men's team beating Mexico, and we're hoping that will continue. So I'm kind of fired up about that. I'm also sort of delirious from watching election returns and working last night. So today should be pretty interesting, I think.
So this is the football and football.
Football and football, yes. We're doubling up on the footballs. We will start with the college footballs, and we're a couple weeks into the official playoff rankings. This week we have Bama number 1, Clemson, Michigan, Washington that's your current Final Four right now. Ohio State's 5th, Louisville 6th. I guess the first thing that I'd ask you is given what we've seen from the season so far, is the committee and the rankings on the right track from what you can tell?
It's kind of remarkable that I'm going to say this, but I think so. You know, I'm looking at it right now, and it's one of those things that I'm not sure I would switch any of them at this point. Now, last week's were a little bit more interesting, having A&M at 4, and you figured, and I actually was okay with that because, you know, we went through this last year. Like, that's going to sort itself out because A&M's going to play Bama. Like,
Yep.
So I wasn't all that worried about having A&M at 4. I did not expect A&M to tank against Mississippi State. That was an interesting development. So I expected it to sort itself out. I didn't expect it to sort itself out that week. But now I think that's even the right order. It's the right 4 teams, and it's the right order. And you've got the right 2 teams sitting at 5 and 6 that if something wacky happens, it wouldn't be out of the question to move them up in there. I think Ohio State should be number 5. I think Louisville should be number 6. So, yeah, I think right now the committee is right on.
Obviously, the fan part of me thinks Ohio State, woo, number 5, yes. And that was kind of, I think that if I look at this top 6, that may be my one question. If I step back and look at this a little more objectively, does Ohio State and Louisville, should that be flipped? I'm not sure. I think overall Ohio State's played an actually fairly respectable schedule this season. You can't really sneeze at what Louisville's come across either, but I guess that feels okay to me at this point. Obviously, with still a ways to go. We have, and this is interesting the way this has worked out. We don't get to spread out our games on Saturday. They are all 3 night games, which is kind of a cool thing.
Get your thumb ready.
Yeah, exactly. Just multiple televisions, picture in picture, get a couple different screens, all of that fun stuff. We start marginally it's a top 25 game, but I think still a pretty good matchup. Number 24 LSU at number 25 Arkansas. LSU is favored by a touchdown. Carla, I think I would think that LSU is easily the best 5-3 team in the country. And they probably deserve the 24th ranking because by virtue of their record. But how do you see this one?
It's interesting. LSU is a team this year that you can't really put your thumb on. It's,
yes.
A couple different personalities we've seen from this team. We saw Les get fired and Ed come in, and the team had looked really, really good in the first 3 weeks that Orgeron was the head coach. And then last week against Bama, Bama did what Bama does and shut out LSU. And it's interesting. I was reading some of the stuff heading into this game, and everyone's like, well, what happened to the LSU offense in that game? And I raised the question, well, then why did Les Miles get fired? Like, there has to be a reason, right, that this happened. And that was always the big gripe about LSU, is that they could never figure out this quarterback thing.
Right.
They're living in a hotbed of quarterbacks, and they just never, ever figured that out under Les. Because you put in an interim head coach, that's not going to solve that problem, right? You still don't have a quarterback. And they just happened to have 3 games in a row that didn't bother them, and they won pretty convincingly. And everyone's like, "Oh, Ed is the savior of the program. He should be a candidate."
Better now. It's all better.
Yeah, exactly. But if you remember correctly, everybody said the same thing about Ed at USC when he filled in this same exact role. Was a couple of years ago when they got rid of was it Kiffin?
Yes.
Yeah, when they got rid of Kiffin. On the tarmac. Hey, we need something to laugh about. Kiffin getting fired on the tarmac. I'll take it at this point.
I think just Lane Kiffin getting fired. I think that's enough.
Yeah, yeah. So now he's on the Bama staff. Wow, look at that. So yeah, it's just one of those things that I don't know what's going on with the LSU thing, because everyone's like, well, what happened to LSU? Well, we knew what happened to LSU. They've not had this offense thing figured out. And you look at Arkansas, and this was actually a game that I got to watch most of, being married to a Gator. We watched all of the Arkansas-Florida game.
I'm sorry.
Last week. Yes. There wasn't much on at 3:30. It worked. So we watched most of that game. Yeah. And you watch this Arkansas defense. It's kind of like the exact opposite of what's happening at LSU, right? You put Bielema in there, and okay, we all have mixed feelings about Brett Bielema, but you can start to see these pieces starting to come together. Now, they haven't been consistent, but they're consistently improving from where they were last year, right? And that Arkansas defense looked really, really good against Florida, a team that we've talked about this over and over and over again. Florida doesn't have an offense either, right? That was the big thing coming into the season. They didn't have an offense. They thought it was fixed. Nope, it wasn't. We know this about Florida, no offense. So it's an interesting matchup. Arkansas essentially has the same team twice in a row, a team that is really, really struggling on offense. And they're playing at home at night. Everything says that LSU wins this game. Everybody's saying this is an LSU win, this is an LSU win, this is an LSU win. I am not so sure about that. I don't know. With an interim coach, even though Leonard Fournette is Leonard Fournette, but he's not having that same season that he had last year.
Not even close.
And so I think there's room here to say Razorbacks win because of what we've seen. The LSU offense is still kind of wacky. The Arkansas defense, I mean, they made some switches last week that really worked against the Gators. And if it works again against LSU, I think you're going to see one of these wacky games where Arkansas turns around and wins this thing. Wackier things have happened, and I don't know. It's just 2 programs that I see crossing on the pattern. That the LSU is kind of trending downward right now because they just don't know who they are. Once they get a coach and a quarterback, they'll be great. but I don't know. My gut says upset here, and that the
Okay.
Razorbacks are going to win this thing. But this is, out of all the games we're talking about, I think this is the game that will be the most entertaining.
Okay.
Just because I think the two teams are so evenly matched. But I'm going to go upset and say Arkansas.
Okay, and it's I don't think that's a hard thing to come up with. LSU favored by a touchdown on the road is that's something you raise your eyebrows a little bit. Although I mean, LSU, maybe with the exception of the quarterback position, LSU is as talented as anybody in the country. I know they get shut out against Alabama a week ago, but that's still they really held Alabama's offense to a respectable level. That speaks a lot about the Tigers' defense. It's just the way things have worked out that they would have a 5-3 record at this point of the season. It's kind of nuts because I think they are better than that. But it's also that I hate to say it is what it is, but it is what it is. And you could actually end up, win this game, but you still be like 7-4 on the season. And looking at the Weed Eater poll or something like that. Do they still have that one? I don't think.
I'm not sure. I should go look though. Belk. We'll end up with the Belk bowl.
I'm going to stick with LSU here. I think that's obviously a coaching change does not solve personnel problems, although some different play calls, that sort of thing can loosen up the offense a little bit. And I think you've seen some of that since Orgeron has taken over. So I'm cautiously going to pick LSU to win this game at Arkansas on Saturday night. Next up, we have number 20 USC at number 4 Washington. Washington is favored by 9 and is, of course, the hot team on the West Coast. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. This is a USC team that kind of picked up its season after it switched quarterbacks. It switched to Sam Darnold at quarterback, and they won 3 games in a row by almost the same score, which is kind of freaky. If you go look at it, it's like it was like 42-14 or 15, like in 3 consecutive games.
Okay.
So this is a team that has found its offense again, with a new quarterback, new life, fresh blood. Everything seems to be clicking quite well for the Trojans. And you look at what's going on in Washington, and this is something that probably, I don't know if anybody really picked this at the beginning of the season, but you're sitting with a Huskies team that's.
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, I knew that Washington could be good, but this good, no, I don't think anybody saw this coming. And Washington has been so good that that they're going to hit a game where they're going to hit a speed bump. I don't know if this is the game. The fact that this game is in Washington. If this game was at the Coliseum, then I think we'd be having a different conversation here.
Absolutely.
But the fact that the Huskies are playing at home under the lights, Gus on the call, so there's a reason to have this one on the flip, right?
Right.
Because Gus calling a Pac-12 game after dark is going to be amazing. With 2 offenses that are really kind of hitting their stride right now. But I mean, Jake Browning needs to be at the Heisman ceremony. I don't care whether or not he wins it, but he needs to be there because he's setting all kinds of crazy records right now, and just having a ridiculous season. This is one of those kind of Cinderella kind of things that we saw like last year with Clemson, where it was kind of like riding the wave of Deshaun Watson and making it into the playoff. I think Washington is that team this year. I think they win this game. They win it relatively convincingly. The game that you want to watch for Washington is the Apple Cup.
Yes.
When they play Wazoo. That's going to be – then we're talking something different here. But I think USC might be able to make this interesting for a while, but I don't know. I see too much out of Washington that I like. I like their defense. I like their offense. Their special teams has been crazy good too. So, I think the Huskies win this one pretty convincingly.
I think it will be fun, given everything that you went through and Gus on the call. But even with a kind of resurrected offense, you're talking about a Washington team that plays good defense. I think 11th in the country in scoring defense. So if there's a speed bump there to slow the Trojans down a little bit, then you hand the ball back to the Huskies offense, which is scoring 48 plus a game, and this turns into probably what we expect to see here. And then you're looking at Washington. We mentioned right now they're a Final Four team. They have Arizona State at home after this. They have the rivalry game, and that's going to be the big test of the season before they presumably if they are to get to the conference championship game. So that will be the one to watch, and I'm fairly sure that would be one we would talk about.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're a Pac-12 team, and we've talked about this all season. I still think they've got to win out to get in the playoff. I just, if you get down to nuts and bolts, and you've got, okay, so let's go with fandom here for a minute. Okay. Ohio State beat Michigan,
okay,
right? So you've got two Big Ten teams in the same division that have one loss versus a Washington team that has one loss. Which team sits out? And that's an interesting conversation. Does Washington get the edge? I'm not sure when you look at their schedule, because Stanford hasn't lived up to expectations. Right. Oregon is imploding. Yeah, they're a good team, but where are the quality wins on that schedule? Like I hate to say that, but the Pac-12 just is beating up on itself just like it did last year. And I think if the Huskies lose, I think they're going to be sitting on their hands on selection night when they do that, sitting, do we get in or do we not? I think that'll be an interesting conversation, but they've got to win out, I think. Okay.
That could be. I mean, they're certainly helped by the fact that I think at this point the Big 12 has pretty much eliminated itself. So that's the road is a little bit easier, but that could be, and especially if you get down to a situation where you've got two pretty good one-loss teams in the Big Ten East. We'll see what happens. And of course, a couple weeks left in the season, that could all work itself out. Speaking of the Big Ten, we have number 3 Michigan at unranked Iowa. I didn't. Well, number one, there aren't a whole lot of top 25 versus top 25 matchups this week. And this is the point of the year. There's a little bit of kind of selfishness here. This is the point of the year I want to start paying attention to Michigan. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not picking Iowa to win. Michigan's a 21.5 point favorite in this game. But at night at Kinnick Stadium, not an easy place to play. And frankly, I want to see Michigan. I want to see someone test Michigan on the road because it has not happened yet, and that's that's a little bit due to circumstance, but also due to their schedule. This is only their 3rd road game of the year. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to know who did Michigan's schedule. Because if I'm any other team in the Big Ten, I'm like, sign me up. I want that schedule, right? Yeah, that's it. I'm not sure how that happened, but okay, that's where we sit. So, at the beginning of the year, this was a game that you probably would have circled and said this could be a trap game. Absolutely. And now we're at this point in the season where the Hawkeyes are sitting at 5-4, and they got thumped by Penn State last week. I mean, not even close, not even in the game against a Penn State team that I can say this because I'm a Penn State fan, an overrated Penn State team. I mean, they're the number 10 team in the country. There's too many holes there. Should they be a top 25? I think they're a top 25 team. I don't think they're a top 10 team. Okay. Just because of how badly they lost to Michigan and how badly they looked against Pitt, which is a team that's not figured itself out yet this year. Just those two things. Like, okay, they knocked off Ohio State. That was a big win, but that was a rivalry game at night. Okay, we're not talking about Penn State. But to see Iowa go in and just completely get slacked against Penn State. This isn't the Hawkeyes that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. And their offense has suddenly gone missing. Like it's been one of these roller coaster things with their offense. Like they scored 49 points against Purdue, and then the very next week they only scored 9 against Wisconsin. Now, okay, more about offense, Wisconsin defense, okay. But still, this is an offense that has just been very, very, very inconsistent. the crazy part about this whole thing is that you're right to have us talk about this game, because there's still a chance. The Big Ten West is just a hot mess right now, and there's actually a chance that Iowa could still win the division, which is crazy at this point. But you've got like all these teams that are like jumbled up with 2 losses and 3 losses and 4 losses, and there's 3 weeks left in the season. Like, it could still happen. If Iowa wins out, they could still win the West. Which, gosh, I mean, I guess that says a lot about what's the Big Ten West this year. But I don't know. It's an interesting game. The only argument that I've seen so far as to why Iowa could win this game, even like all the big national websites,
right,
they're pointing back to the 2009 game against Penn State where they won it and knocked off an undefeated team when they entered the game at 5-4. Okay, 2009, the current roster was in junior high. Like, that's not a valid argument. I don't care. Like, Michigan wins this game. 21 points on the road, maybe not like 21 points, but I don't think it's going to be in question. I think Michigan is going to enter the game against your Buckeyes undefeated, which is good for both teams, for playoff purposes. But maybe a little speed bump, but no, I don't see it. Sorry.
I would just like to see, and this is the primary reason I included this. The teams that could provide legitimate tests for Michigan both went to Ann Arbor. I'm talking about Wisconsin, which went to which played them really tough.
Yeah, I did.
I'm also thinking about Penn. Also thinking about Penn State. I would be curious to see what Michigan would do with a night trip in Happy Valley. I just don't feel like I know yet. I don't feel like they certainly haven't. And some of this is not not the fault of whoever made the schedule. You would expect Michigan State to be tough, playing in East Lansing. And it turned out not to be that way. Although they did give up. The Michigan's defense gave up 23, I think, to the Spartans.
Something like that.
So there's just enough of those little things like that. The Wisconsin game, giving up that many points to a Michigan State team that is clearly down. I don't know who these guys are. I mean, statistically, it is nuts. It's particularly the defense, the number 1 in the country in points per game, number 1 in yards allowed. But I don't know. I want to see a little bit more from them. Certainly a very, very good team. I'm not sure at this point. I know you got to respect the record and the stats and look at all that stuff. I'm not sure they're the number 3 team in the country. They could be. And certainly I'm going to have a chance to find out firsthand in a couple weeks. But and
it's not going to be next week either.
No, not going to be next week. It'll be the Saturday after Thanksgiving is when we figure this out, I think. Carla, my last question for you. For several times now, when the United States men's soccer team plays the Mexican national team in Columbus, the scoreline has been 2-0. Get this up here. There we go. 2-0. Can that happen again Friday as the 2 teams kick off World Cup qualifying?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yes, because I think based on this week. I think it's going to be a really interesting atmosphere in Columbus. And
it's always an excellent atmosphere in Columbus. And given the political happenings of this week, there's some extra symbolism there, which it has to add to everything. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's everything combined here. I think that atmosphere will be really interesting. I don't know. I almost feel like, it's one of those things where like everybody rallies behind the team, right? We've seen this at colleges, right? When troubling things happen at a college, everybody rallies behind the sporting team, sure, whether it's football or basketball or, softball even, to go rally for the team. I think we might see a little bit of that in Columbus, because gosh, we need something to cheer for. And you know, it's. I think the atmosphere will be great. Yes, I think you could see a 2-0 again.
Okay. I'm hoping. Otherwise, well, I can always get another T-shirt, I guess. Guys, thank you very much for joining us on what has already been a long week, and we haven't even gotten any actual games yet. Carla, thank you.
Yep. Thanks as always. Get some sleep.
USA, guys. We will talk to you again next week. Is that up? There you go.